Middlesbrough missed out on promotion not once, not twice, but 3 times this season. Borough spent more days in the top 2 than any other side over the course of the season, but fell out of the automatic promotion places right near the end as Ipswich claimed the second spot in the division. They then fell to Southampton with a 2-1 defeat over 2 legs in the playoff semi-final before getting another reprieve thanks to the Spygate scandal, being restated to face Hull City in the final. Despite dominating the final on a lot of metrics, they fell to a 1-0 defeat thanks to Ollie McBurney's late goal. In this episode of the Football Data Guy podcast, I'll look into Borough's underlying numbers, the 3 factors that cost them promotion, and why I think with a good summer window, they'll be able to gain promotion next season under Kim Helberg. Now, the most obvious factor to Borough's decline this season that a bunch of people will point out is the injury to Hayden Hackney. The central midfielder is likely to be one of the first out of the door with Premier League interest, and understandably so. Prior to his injury, you can see on the chart here, Borough were averaging roughly 1.9 points per game, but without him in the side, they averaged around 1.1 points per game. So that's a drop off from close to 2 to close to 1. Now, in historic seasons, to gain automatic promotion, you're looking to achieve around 2 points per game. 2 points per game is a good ratio of points that will get you promoted. So you can see 1.9 with him in the team would probably have seen them over the line. But with him dropping off to around 1.1, that's definitely more lower mid-table form. And you can see that Borough are kind of the team with the fast start that then drop off, whereas the teams that actually ended up with them, of which there were 4 in the end, all have a bit more consistency there in the number of points per game on a 5-match rolling average. Coventry obviously starting very well. They did have a bit of a slump in the middle of the season, similar sort of time to when Borough did as well, actually. But they had a resurgence afterwards. You can see there that their graph goes back up. Ipswich kind of up and down all season, never consistently stringing a large amount of wins together, but never also going on a really bad run where they weren't picking up many points. So despite there kind of being a lot of spikes and ups and downs in there, the general trend is around 2 points per game across the season. Similar with Southampton, awful start to the season, but as soon as they picked up form under Eckhart, the less said about his morals and spying, the better. That's not the podcast for this. But you could see that they were very consistent. And even Millwall, despite a couple of drops, they were averaging kind of over 2 points per season on a 5-game rolling average for a lot of the season. Now, if we look a bit more at Hackney himself, he's clearly one of the standout players in the division and is almost certain to get a Premier League move this summer now. I can see him potentially going to Crystal Palace if Adam Wharton's one who moves on. But he's just got that all-round game from a midfielder. I watched him live a couple of times, and you could really see that his versatility is a key factor. And Middlesbrough, when they were struggling, they tried to get him on the ball wherever they could. So there's 6 sections here to his season that we can run through. His pass map, you can see a huge number of passes from both that right side of midfield and the left side. Playing with Aidan Morris, the pair formed a double pivot, and he could go wherever he wanted, really. And Morris would cover him on the other side. At times, he was dropping back to receive from the defenders. At other times, he was operating more around the edge of the box. You can see from his take-on map next to that he completed 57% of his take-ons. There's a lot of the darker red dots there that show where he got past players and looks to get into the box there. Chipped in with goals and a number of shots as well, and received a bunch of good passes in good areas again. Didn't shirk the defensive side. Now you can look at tackles won and interceptions. They tend to be the two metrics that you use for kind of your tough tackling defensive midfielders, and he does fairly well there. 50 out of 69 tackles won show that he's not someone who dives in and misses the ball. When he's going to win a tackle, he will win the tackle. 21 interceptions is okay, but then a large number of ball recoveries. So that's kind of the defensive side that I feel is missed sometimes when you're thinking about tackles and interceptions. You're really looking at your kind of number 6 defensive midfielders. But when you think about the makeup of a midfield, you need one of those players. But equally as important is a player that can make a number of ball recoveries. So having the anticipation to figure out where the ball is going to drop and pick it up without making a tackle or an interception. Sandro Tonali was very, very good at this a few seasons ago. Newcastle's form has dipped recently, but that midfield had a bit of everything in there, and Sandro Tonali was the player who had the most ball recoveries. So Hayden Hackney's 205 ball recoveries there is a very, very good number, and I think in the mold of an all-round midfielder, that is something that you need. And then finally, you can see his touches and his heat maps again. Got that versatility and the freedom in the Middlesbrough side to play on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, wherever he wanted to go to roam. Now, when you look at who replaced him, Alan Brown came in and played a lot of games. And although he's a decent championship player, you were really then lacking the quality there. So it's unsurprising that without him in the side, Middlesbrough were a poorer team, and they coped okay for a little bit, but over a consistent period of time, they definitely would have picked up more points if Hackney was available. And even in the playoff final, you could see when he came on for the last 30 minutes that he was there. He was picking up spaces. He was creating chances. He played a lovely inside ball to one of the wingers. I think it was Hansen, and Hansen then hit the post. So a big factor, and he'll be a big miss next season if he does go as we expect him to. That's not the only reason why I think Borough struggled and weren't quite able to get promotion over the line. The next area that I think they were lacking in was a quality number 9. Now, that is a market that is hard to operate in the Championship. There's not many of them out there. So what I've done here is I've looked at the 3 promoted teams and compared them to Middlesbrough. And you can see this is a goals to expected goals chart. And there's really not many red dots towards the top right-hand side. Coventry absolutely blitzed the league and had a number of different goal scorers. Brandon Thomas Asante was the first of their players to go on a run of scoring goals. And even though he then missed some games, you had Efron Mason-Clark chipping in, Hadji Wright chipping in. Victor Torp is an excellent kind of box crashing midfielder who can score goals from midfield. And even Sakamoto and Rodoni in there are down the bottom, but still scoring more goals than the majority of Middlesbrough, Ipswich or Hull players. For Hull, you do have a good number 9 in there. You've got Ollie McBurney, scored over 15 goals and outperformed his XG by more than anyone else in that chart there. His XG being kind of around 11 goals there. Ipswich didn't have a prolific striker. They got George Hurst and Ivan Athon, both players who underperformed their XG. Azon massively so by an underperformance of minus 6.46. But what they did have is 2 incredible left wingers who were in goal scoring form in Jack Clark and Jaden Philogene, who shared the load there. And even though their strikers were underperforming, George Hurst still chipped in with 11 goals, which is a useful number. And you've got some of the other players there, kind of a stack of blue at the bottom left, where you were getting other players chipping in with a few goals here and there. When you look at Middlesbrough, you can really see the difference here. Morgan Whittaker was the only real standout in terms of goals. David Strelec and Tommy Conway are the two that you'd expect the goals to come from. You can see both of them were underperforming their XG. Even Hayden Hackney, who had a very, very good season, wasn't really that goal scoring midfielder. He operated more in the midfield 2 than as a 10, although I do believe he could play in a 10, but that limited his goal attribute output because you need him further back to create the chances rather than finishing them off. So if they had a number 9 in there who could finish the chances off, then I'm sure they would have done a lot better. As it was, there was definitely a period of games where they were creating very good high value XG chances, and they were falling to your Dale Fries, your Matt Targets, your defenders there in attacking positions. And unsurprisingly, they aren't the best finishers, and they weren't able to put the chances away in the end. So that's two things that we've looked at: the lack of Hackney, the lack of a clinical goal scorer. The last thing I think cost Middlesbrough is the number of errors, and not just the number of errors, but the times that they happened. So you can see here in this error chart, they are 6th in terms of number of errors conceded. Now, 23 of them led to chances, but when you look at the number that led to goals, only 3 of them led to goals. So they were making a lot of mistakes and not being punished in the regular league season. Blackburn are the only team that made less errors leading to goals. But then you can see there right at the bottom of the chart, they only made 13 errors in total. And it was eventually an error that cost Borough in the final, a goalkeeping error by Sol Bryn. And you can see if you look at the right-hand side of the chart, that Bryn made 5 errors in total, 3 leading to chances, 2 leading to goals, 1 being the most costly. Now, again, if we look at the other promoted teams, you'll see there's no Coventry on here at all. There's no Hull on here at all. A couple of Ipswich players, Dara O'Shea with 6 errors, 2 leading to goals, and Christian Walton with 4 errors, 1 leading to goals. But that's another area where Borough weren't very good in and were perhaps a bit lucky. You can see Luke Ayling there made 5 errors that led to chances for the opposition. So although they had a lot of good team play, there were still individuals in the team, particularly in the goalkeeping area for me, where they never looked as comfortable as they could have done. When you've not got a striker who's able to score 20 goals a season, you've got a goalkeeper who's shaky, and you lose your midfield general, then it's almost no surprise that they fell off as much as they did. So we've looked at where things went wrong last season. Now, why do I think there's hope this season? I think Kim Helberg is a fantastic manager. I think some of the tactical tweaks and new formations and roles and interplays and triangle creation within the Middlesbrough team that he brought were interesting. They were unseen in this league in recent times, and they got the best out of their players. So here is a chart of the top 9 players in the league by progressive action. So that is getting the ball up the pitch by either passing or carrying. Luke Ayling is top with progressive passes. Middlesbrough were a very possession-dominant team under Helberg. They had a lot of the ball. I'm pretty sure they made the most passes in the division. So it's unsurprising that Luke Ayling is up there with the most progressive passes in the division. He's got that experience, that leadership as well. Played as a bit of a hybrid central defender. Obviously, he's played at right back in his career. Helberg likes to use him to press high up the pitch or be the member of the defence to jump out and press high. I think that worked quite well. Then, unsurprisingly, you've got Hayden Hackney in there, but we'll rule him out. We'll assume that he won't be there. His replacement in terms of creativity, progressive passing, and defensive ability is already in the building. If you look below him, you've got Aidan Morris there. You can see his progressive carries and progressive passes are very similar in terms of the map to Hackney's. Now, when we looked at Hackney's touch map, you could see that he played both sides. Obviously, if he's going to play both sides, that means that Morris will have to play the other side, depending on where he is in that double pivot. So their Hayden Hackney replacement is already in the building in Aidan Morris. It's just what sort of midfielder do you bring in to play alongside him? Do you bring in another all-rounder, or do you bring in more of a tough tackling defensive midfielder? That's something that I'm sure the Middlesbrough recruitment team and Helberg will be thinking about. Now, the last player on this chart is probably the most interesting one in terms of Callum Britton. Now, I've always liked Callum Britton as a championship defender. I think Helberg has allowed him to take his game to the next level and get the best out of his attributes. Now, in Borough's formation, Britton almost plays as an old school right midfielder. Technically, on the team sheet, he's a right back, but the places on the pitch that he takes up are very much right midfield places. And you can see from his map here that he's very much looking to drive down the wing when he's carrying the ball. But when he's on the ball, he's looking for those switches of play and those crosses in the box. There's a large number of right to left balls in there. Again, like I said, a bit like an old school right midfielder. Get the ball out wide to him, let him run down the wing and whip a good ball into it. Again, those chances are currently probably falling to the wrong people. If you get your number 9 sorted, then I'm sure Callum Britton could potentially hit double figures in terms of assists next season. Someone who is great at getting assists and whipping balls in and playing a similar sort of role is right next to him there, Ryan Manning. And you can see that he's made way more progressive passes and progressive carries than Manning there, but probably hasn't been rewarded as much for it as well. So I think Britton is another crucial player to keep hold of. And then if we look at the final third entries as well, Borough absolutely overloaded teams and played a lot of their football in the final third. The 3 people that we've mentioned again are the top 3, Hackney, Morris and Britton, for final third passes and final third carries. And you can just see the volume of carries that Hackney has in the final third there, and the volume of balls into the box from Callum Britton, as we've mentioned. A few other interesting players in here. Coventry players, Jay De Silva and Matt Grimes there. You've got Imran Loser is the light yellow that may not be visible. Ryan Manning again coming up. Sorba Thomas had an excellent season for Stoke. And Abdul Fatawu, who I think may end up in the Premier League next year, despite having been relegated by Leicester. So there you have it. They're the reasons that Borough fell short, but there's plenty of hope for Middlesbrough fans. You've got a superb manager, some ready-made replacements in the building, and with a good window, there's no reason that you can't be competing at the top of the league next year.